Welcome back, everybody. This is Darreck Kirby back for another Mavericks postgame show here. The Dallas Mavericks got themselves another quality victory, another buzzer-beating victory, taking down a relatively, I know the Nets are the 8 seed, but let's be real, they're a very talented team. They didn't have Kyrie last night, one night after he dropped 60 on Orlando, but they do still have Kevin Durant, who 2 or 3 days earlier dropped 52 or something on the Knicks. So relative, a very noteworthy opponent, and having to go on the road and beat them right after playing a slugfest against the number 1 rated defense in the league in Boston, who, by the way, beat the Warriors by 22 last night. Granted, Steph missed the second half, is really impressive. And what I like about this game is the Mavericks did not, as they've shown a tendency not to do, they did not get shaken up by ominous disadvantages. They fell behind by 12 points going into the fourth quarter, and Luka started the fourth quarter on the bench, but they didn't let that bother them. They stayed the course. After the first possession of the fourth quarter, it was a 14-point lead, and they navigated it rather well. Even though KD was on the floor and Luka was off, even though it was a 12-point deficit, Dallas did not get shaken from their game plan. They just ratcheted up the defensive intensity and blitzed the Nets into a pretty rough quarter. The Nets only had 20 points in the fourth quarter after having 91 through 3 quarters. It was 91-79 going into the fourth, and Dallas outscores them by 10 to steal a 2-point victory. That's really, really impressive. But before we get into all of that, let's highlight some of the other things here. So Luka in the first half, pretty much using and abusing Drummond. 24 points for Luka in the half, just absolutely beating Andre Drummond as if he stole something from him. Phenomenal stuff there from Luka. That kept Dallas kind of hanging around, but it wasn't enough to really give you that. Spencer Dinwiddie had 15 of his 22 points in the fourth quarter, so that's huge in crunch time. But that just shows you were lacking a little bit in the interim to get to that point. Brunson ends with 18 points, so he's huge at the start of the fourth quarter when Luka's on the bench. He gets 2 or 3 possessions in a row where he just kind of makes something out of nothing and puts them into that position. But it's one of those situations, too, where Dallas kind of struggled until they found that gear in the fourth quarter. Luka's able to come in, they're able to make some headway, and that opens things up then. Luka doesn't get his first shot, I think, until 2 minutes, 20 seconds left in the fourth quarter. His first shot of the quarter, which is crazy. Now, this game did see a lot of double teaming. Obviously, Luka draws more double teams than anybody else in the league. And after the game, Durant, who Dallas threw a lot of double teams at as well, he kind of complained about that, basically saying well, you paid all this money to Dorian Finney-Smith, so is he a defender, or are you just going to keep basically using this cheap tactic all the time for the next few years, which is, he means basically throwing a second defender at him to force the ball out. But it's first of all, KD, you're not even in the top 10 most double-teamed players in the league. Luka leads that. So crying about the fact that you're not getting one-on-one, looks against a defender, even if it's a great defender, a guy who has a legitimate case for an all-NBA defensive team this year in Dorian Finney-Smith, that's pretty weak that you're complaining oh, a defense did the smart thing to slow me down. Okay. I don't know what to tell you, dude. Better offense, good defense, better offense is pretty much an accepted thing. The best offensive players in the league are going to beat the best defenses in the league. Generally, might be in play-to-play situations, but that's just how it goes. So you're going to then fault the defense for not just getting torched going one-on-one exclusively? Nah, man, they held KD to 23-10, 23-10-6 for KD. Now, he does hit a monster 3 with 10 seconds left to put Brooklyn up a point, 111-110. But even still, it's pretty weak to be whining about that. Now, the greater context of it, he did give Dallas credit for some of the things they did, but I don't know. So much of what KD says and how he acts just irks me because he feels like a superstar that whines a lot, and that's never been a good look. Even when he was in OKC, you saw that at times, and it's always irked me. But even still, Dallas in this game, one of the big things was they went 19 of 19 at the free throw line. That's huge. This is a team that has not been a great free throw shooting team. Obviously, Luka has had his struggles throughout the duration of his NBA career. And Dinwiddie was 5 of 9 at the line at Boston, but he had some big free throws. You had big free throws then in crunch time by Maxey and by Dorian Finney-Smith. That was huge. I really like what Dallas is doing with this. Like, they are showing a lot of grit and fight and tenacity because they basically drew even with like 4 minutes left in the game. And then they just started slugging it out bucket for bucket with Brooklyn. They climbed the mountain, and even though Brooklyn kept coming back with counter punches, Dallas answered every single time. The Durant 3 was the first time Brooklyn really seesawed back out ahead of them, and Dallas was like, yeah, that's cool. We're going to hit another Dinwiddie 3. That's his 6th career buzzer beater. And, he played for Brooklyn. His best years of his career were in Brooklyn. So that had to feel great for him, and that's huge for Dallas. Brooklyn actually implemented a really good trap there, but again, I'm gonna back up from that just into crunch time there. I said Luka got his first bucket of the fourth quarter with like 2:20 left. He then starts going at Goran Dragic, who himself had a brilliant game. 21 points for Goran Dragic. He had a huge second quarter. He ended up with 21, 3, and 4 was his line. Big plays from Goran Dragic, and that's exactly the kind of thing that before we knew what Dinwiddie was going to be for Dallas, we wanted that. We knew we weren't going to get that every game from Goran, certainly at this point in his career. But that was the kind of thing we looked at, and he was huge in this game for Brooklyn. And, Luka going at him, he went at him a lot. Once he got that first bucket with 2:20, he's like, all right, I'm going to go at you 2 more times in a row now. He misses the second one, but he does hit yet another Dirk turning one-legged fade. He basically went to the same move 3 times in the mid-range from 3 different spots. Twice found pay dirt with bottom of the net. And that's some serious cojones. Luka hits the shot then with 20 seconds left to seesaw back out ahead. That's when Dallas goes up 110, 108. At that point, Luka comes down the court. He's talking trash. He's feeling all kinds of confident. And then KD hits that dagger, and you're kind of like, ooh, okay, that might be the backbreaker. But Brooklyn, despite implementing a well-timed double team, cannot stop Spencer Dinwiddie. They bring a late trap on Luka, an aggressive trap with KD. So when you're throwing a 6'9", 6'10" dude with that wingspan at Luka with like 2 seconds left, Dallas doesn't have time to swing the ball to Dorian Finney-Smith in the corner. Dinwiddie's got to catch it, and even though Goran Dragic is contesting and right on top of him, you got to just pull the trigger. And despite that, Dallas rains it down. Dinwiddie knocks down the 3. Again, 15 for him in the fourth quarter. Absolutely mammoth. Runs the Nico Harrison and Michael Finley right afterwards by the Mavs bench, thanking them for taking the chance on him. It's kind of revived his career, and there's no doubt he's a perfect running mate next to Luka. That's not to say that Brunson is without value. Obviously, you saw in this game particularly the benefit of having 3 guys that can handle the ball and kind of run things. All of them had their moments. Luka, sensational in the first half, closed great. Brunson, a consistent engine throughout, huge in the fourth quarter. Dinwiddie, huge in the fourth quarter, huge in the crunch time. Phenomenal stuff all the way around. If there's something I want to call out for Dallas, I would say at this point, I would say the lack of bench scoring is concerning. They only had 15 points off the bench. They're basically playing a 7-man rotation. That's concerning. Maxey, even though he's finding other ways to affect the game, his offensive game is just completely gone at this point. I don't think it's that he's done in that capacity. I just think that it's confidence, and I think that it's something where he's in a rut and he's just trying to find other ways to impact the game where he can. And for the most part, he is. But disastrous offensive games out of Maxey, not good. Trying to see here any other notes I have. So I mentioned before they held the Nets to 20 points in the fourth quarter after giving up 91 through 3. I mentioned at one point as well, Steph Curry, even though they lost by 22 to Boston, he didn't play in the second half because of a foot injury. He had an MRI. So keep an eye on that because Dallas is 3 games back. Granted, they're not going to win the season series. They split the season series with Utah. So they're still in a situation where they're not really likely to move all the way up there. But it is interesting because you could have some shuffling occur depending on what happens for Golden State. Elsewhere, the Mavericks technically seesawed ahead for a little bit to the 4 seed over the Jazz, but the Jazz ended up beating Chicago, so they're back technically, even though it's the same record, they're still in position by way of what I said earlier. They have they split the season series and other tiebreakers. The fact that they're a division leader and they're going to win the division, whereas Dallas won't because Memphis is ahead of them, that's giving the Jazz the 4 seed positioning instead of the 5. But yeah, if you're going to face off with the Jazz in the playoffs, you want home court advantage because the home team has won the last 7 contests between these teams. You want home court desperately. But we'll see if they're able to get that. Let me see. Sterling Brown and Frank Ntilikina, they got to reduce their minutes. And it's weird to say when you're already basically working with a 7-man rotation, but you're just not getting anything useful or helpful from them. And that's problematic. So it's a great win for Dallas. It really is. It is a great, gritty win. Dinwiddie back-to-back game-winning 3s at the buzzer. Ridiculous. Exactly what they need. And Brooklyn played it perfectly. But as I said earlier, good defense, better offense. That's what it boils down to. So we'll see. We'll see if this Mavericks team can kind of keep getting away with the fact that they are very shallow at the front court. The fact that they don't have a guy that can gobble up rebounds. It's like Luka's having to take on all the extra rebounding burden. And they're exciting. Their blitzing style of defense is great. But there are concerns, especially in a playoff series, whether or not that could hold up. I'm not so sure. But for now, this team is exciting and it's promising. And what was thought to be a bit of a ball and chain in Dinwiddie's contract now looks like a steal. If you were to lock up Brunson as well, you've got 3 capable scorers and ball handlers for this team moving forward. And that's something Dallas has never had with Luka. So locking that up long term sounds really, really intriguing. We'll see what they do, though. Great win. Great job. They play Friday night at Philadelphia. And then I think after that, they got Charlotte. So keep a lookout for that. But that does it for my time here. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment, subscribe below. And until next time, guys, remember, every legend was once a prospect. Peace.